Before we look at the content in the text that was written by Titus Livius or Livy, History of Rome, or as the exact title of the book is, From the Founding of the City. And I need to mention again that this is a book that is a collection of books that Livy wrote in a very expansive period, like close to 40 years. So it's like a collection of his work. So before we go into looking at the contents in that book, I think it's good we start by looking at the person himself, the person who wrote the text, and that is Titus Livius. So Titus Livius is said to have been born around 59 BC or BCE, and he was born around the time that Julius Caesar was coming into office the first time as a consul. And when Livy was born, he wasn't born within what was considered then to be part of the Roman Empire of Rome. In fact, he was born in a town called, he was born into a tribe of people called the Patavians, and the Patavians were not Romans by then when he was born. They were slightly outside Rome, but while he was still very young, Batavia became part of Rome. It was, he said it was made to be a municipality of Rome, and the people of that region were incorporated or made to be part of a tribe of Romans called the Fabian tribe. So, and this city continued to exist. It was called Patavium as a city. It became Patavium, and it continued to exist for a very long time. And at some point, it was one of the wealthiest cities in ancient Rome, or what we know today as Italy, second only maybe to Rome itself. So it was a city that was full of culture, history, and all these things. Now, very little, of course, is known about Livy's own parents and brothers and sisters. But what is known, or what has been mentioned often, is that he came from a well-off family. He came from a well-off family, and that becomes apparent when you consider what he did. He had the opportunity of getting very good education. He learned Greek and Latin literature, and he also learned rhetoric, which these were topics that were very primary for the ancient world, learning literature and rhetoric and maybe logic. So he did get opportunity to study, and it is often, or some sources indicate that he started writing history around the age of 32, and nothing else it is not known whether he did anything else. Mostly it comes across that all he did for the entire of his life, or after 32 years, for the next 40 years, is write history, and that's what he did for that period. And about his own family now, besides his parents and brothers and sisters, there is also very little information about that. But whatever has been gathered from here and there, especially through mentions of other historians like Seneca and others, it has been said that Livy was married to a woman by the name Cassia, and they had at least 3 kids. Because there's a text somewhere apparently where it is mentioned that two of his sons are mentioned. And one of the sons was Titus Livius Priscus, and the other one was Titus Livius Longus. So those ones are mentioned somewhere. It is not known for sure whether they were the only sons or there were others. It just happened that those ones were mentioned. And there is also, apparently there are also letters he did write to, I think, one of the sons, and in one of those letters he was encouraging him to read works by other philosophers and writers. In particular, it is mentioned that he was trying to encourage the son to read works by Desmosthenes, and Cicero. And now, it is also known, or it's almost clear that he also had a daughter, because Seneca mentions about a son-in-law of Livy who went by the name Lucius Magius. So at least Livy did had 3 kids, at least the ones that have been people have been able throughout time to like they are mentioned here and there. 2 sons and a daughter who we don't get the name, but we do get the name from Seneca of the husband, the son-in-law to Livy. And Livy happened to have been a very close friend of Augustus, the emperor. They were very close friends. It seems like he was one of the people who advised Augustus, and it's also mentioned that he did advise the grand nephew of Augustus, Claudius, who ended up being an emperor himself later, and he did advise him to start writing history. And I need to mention here that I read a book by a gentleman by the name Robert Graves. The book itself is titled I, Claudius. And to be honest, it was so interesting. I read that book like maybe 20 years ago. And it's one of the books I've read about ancient Rome that made me fall in love with the history of ancient Rome. It was so interesting. The book itself was written like it is a biography of Claudius, the guy mentioned here, that the guy mentioned to have been advised by Livy, and that book was so interesting, and I really liked it. Now, there's something that Livy says that I also about him, so that he told me something about the character of this guy or who this person was. I'm going to read it. He says, "This shall be, yet this shall be, it will be a certification to have done myself as much as lies in me to commemorate the deeds of the foremost people of the world. And if in so vast company of writers my own reputation should be obscure, my consolation will be the fame and greatness of those who renown will throw mine into the shade." Like he's saying, he was saying that by him writing, he was doing his best, of course, to try to record the history of his nation. But he said it's like he also was aware that maybe his best will not be the best. Like there are others who might do a better job. But he says if it happens that others are going to do a better job than him, he will still celebrate those ones who will make his own work go into obscurity, like not to be seen because there's better work from other people. Yeah, so it shows that this was to me, that came across as someone who was committed to something, not really considering that he wanted to benefit. He was doing it because he thought it is something that somebody needed to do, and even if somebody else did a better job than him, he didn't really mind. He would still celebrate the person who did a better job than him. Now, Livy died in his native home. Before, as a writer, he had moved to Rome itself. But at some point, it's not known whether he had retired and went back to Patavium, or he was visiting Patavium. But what is known is that he died there around the year 17 AD, and he was about 76 years old. So that's the guy who wrote the text that we are going to look at for the next, I think, next few months. Yeah.